Welcome to the latest installment of Brand Brothers. I'm Doug.
And I'm Johnny. Today we're talking about marketing trends.
All right, let's get to it.
So today, Doug, we're going to be talking a little bit about trends, marketing trends that you've been seeing and we've been seeing in our area, and I guess it really applies to worldwide, right?
It's a generally universal kind of a thing that we're diving into. But you know, we certainly have been looking at the Central Florida DMA, or the designated market area. Um, it, and so there are a lot of really interesting things that are happening in the local landscape, but there are several trends that we see that are rather ubiquitous.
So as we go forward, I'd always like to keep us touching back to like actionable stuff. What are you seeing? If there's if you had a small bit, like you do have a small business, if you have a small bit, yours is a medium sized business, not an enterprise level business. What steps? What could someone do to improve their visibility today?
Wow.
And what's something that they could do?
So first off, let me address the small business thing. We are absolutely an S corp, so we are legally a small business, and as it relates to things that people can do today that are in line with these trends.
Like if there's one thing.
Oh my gosh. Well, where to begin, right? So I guess at the top of the list is local SEO. So local SEO is it's not so much that it is not something that hasn't been done. It's just becoming a more significant trend that people are focused on the near me idea.
The hyper-local search results.
Exactly. The hyper-local organic search results.
I got you.
We'll get into the sponsored search results in just a little bit. That's your SEM side of things, right? Your search engine marketing.
Right.
But what we're focused on is search engine optimization.
So you're talking about if you're a beauty salon and someone says, I want to get my hair cut, who's close to me that does haircut, men's haircuts.
Right. That would be it. I mean, if you're going to a beauty salon for that, sure. But yes, so you might type in hairstylist near me, men's haircut near me.
Sure.
Right. And frankly, if you type in men's haircut, generally local search is going to be at the top.
It's like the default, right?
But it depends on whether or not you let it know where you are, right? And by it, I mean Google or Bing.
Okay.
And so how do we make,
engine.
Yeah. So the most important part is to make sure that you can be found. So Google, for example, has a utility called Google Search Console. So the very first thing that I would recommend a small business owner do right now, if they haven't already, or they're not working with someone who's already helping them, they should go type in Google Search Console. And then they should create an account and make sure that their domain name is crawlable.
Right. And so that you just type in your business's Google address or your domain name, and it will give you what people are searching for to get to your site.
Right. And then there's another component to that. And of course, don't just do this for Google. You should do this for Bing, and frankly, any directory that is relevant for your company.
Yelp.
Yes, anywhere and everywhere, really. And making
the more
sure
the better, really.
The more the better, and consistency is key. So whatever information you're putting on Yelp, it needs to be identical to the information that you're putting on Facebook, or at least complementary, right? So if you're describing your hair salon as a hair salon that caters to men, you should make sure that that messaging is consistent from one to another. Does it need to be verbatim? No. But should it be consistent? Absolutely. In fact, if it's a little bit different from one to the next, that's favorable as far as Google is concerned. And speaking of Google, not only is there the search console, and the same is true for Bing. Bing has a developer platform as well, but there's also the Google My Business, right? And so it's super important that you have your GMB profile set up and do the same thing for Bing, and just like any other directory search for that. Um, that's really one of the key emerging trends, is a focus on hyperlocal. And so with that hyperlocal also comes an examination of social media and social media habits. Did you want to talk any more about search engine optimization and search?
I had a and you were talking about social media. Where does like user reviews and stuff? Because I know that that's a huge, like, how many stars you have is really tied into this.
Yeah, so reviews definitely help when they're positive reviews.
Right.
And they need to be relevant reviews, and ideally contain keyword search terms that people would input looking for whatever service it is that you provide.
Right.
Right.
It's
So,
valuable if somebody writes a review that says, "I got my
haircut.
men's haircut."
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, it's all well and good if they're like, "Oh, Tony is an amazing hairstylist," but that's not necessarily going to help Tony be found.
Right.
But there are a number of components to these reviews, right? So more isn't necessarily better, but
More stars is better.
obviously you want as many 5-star reviews as possible. It's actually not a terrible thing to get a 4-star review. It helps.
Helps balance it out a little bit, I think, or makes it seem more authentic.
Yeah, it feels a little bit more authentic in that regard, but sometimes you just can't help it, and everybody just loves you, and you just get a 5-star review.
Like Remix has, right?
That is true. Remixed has all 5-star reviews on just about every single platform, and the beauty of these reviews isn't in the quantity; it's in the quality. And quality is assessed based on how old is your oldest review.
Mm.
How old is your newest review?
How long? Yeah. Well, then
So
also get like sort of, it talks to how long you've been in business, which is also something that helps your search engine your results, right?
well, yeah. How old is your domain name?
Yeah.
It had more clout in the past. It doesn't have as much now.
Mhm.
Really, backlinks are where it's at. But rather than getting in the weeds on
Sure.
backlinks and SERP scores and all that stuff, so actionable thing is the SEO console, the search engine consoles,
Consistency across social media profiles.
right?
Okay.
And when it comes to social media, another emerging trend are these short form videos, or snackable videos, as some people refer
You're
to
talking
them.
about like Reels, TikTok, YouTube does
YouTube Shorts,
YouTube
right?
Shorts, yeah.
So yes, talking about that kind of thing, and the types of content that people are interested in, right? So people love the behind the scenes types of footage. They love the making of types of footage. So if you're a cafe, show someone pouring a cappuccino, right? And doing the coffee art. And if you're in a salon, right, people love to see that time-lapse footage where there's a quick shot of the draping going over them, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say apron. I don't know what it's called. And
Smock. I just like to say that word.
It's a terrible word.
I did see a funny video where it went viral. It was a hairstylist a guy sat down, he puts one on, and then he puts another one on, and before the guy notices, he's put like 20 of them on.
That's hilarious. I saw another one where it was all these different styles, and my personal favorite was where they take a baby doll, remove its head, and sew the baby doll to the front of the smock, and so it looks like you've got this giant head and a tiny baby doll body. And that's the way to garner attention.
It's clever,
right?
yeah.
Like do something that's unexpected, but also simultaneously non-controversial, right? Something that people can find entertaining. And that is the type of sales promotion that you're looking for, is being authentic and engaging with your audience, right? Go where they are and show them the content that they want without being overly salesy, because when people are watching short form video, they're not interested in being sold to necessarily,
Okay.
except for when you get to influencer marketing.
All right. Yeah. Well, now, so tell me, influencer marketing, as I understand it, is when someone is being paid or for whatever reason they want to promote a specific thing. And so,
Right,
like
or
on TikTok,
exchanging
TikTok,
product.
when that you see that they're like selling something specific, like and so it'll say sponsored, but that's one type of influencer marketing. Then
Right.
there's others where it's not so in your face, right?
So what you'll see are a couple different types of influencer marketing. The one that I feel is going to be the biggest trend going into 2026 is niche based hyper local influencer marketing. So this is where a local car dealership, for example, hires someone that drives around their car, right? They're borrowing a Lexus or whatever, and talking about how amazing it is. And maybe it's not a Lexus, maybe it's a different brand.
Subaru Forester.
Or perhaps a Rivian. I don't know. But the long and short of it is that we're seeing a trend moving toward food bloggers, theme park vloggers, even college campus creators, where they're coming across as authentically themselves, which is critical here, right? So we want to make sure that the person that is acting in this influencer mode is someone who believes in the product or service. But not only that, that they reflect the audience that you're trying to receive, right? So if your target audience are middle-aged men, then your micro influencer needs to be a middle-aged man. Conversely, if your audience is someone who's a Gen Alpha female, then your influencer should be a Gen Alpha influencer. And of course, these influencers are becoming increasingly available. And not just because of influencer platforms where you can hire them, but also, dare I say, AI.
So let's talk about AI, because that sort of goes to me. You just were talking about authenticity, and AI seems like the opposite of that.
It is, to an extent, because what we're seeing. Let me really quickly talk about the influencer side of things and the actionable components of also the short form video.
Mhm.
So when it comes to a small business, would I recommend that they engage immediately with an influencer? I hazard to say yes. I often would say, let's come up with a strategy that makes sense. Ideally, that influencer would be someone who's already embedded with the company and not someone that's hired that is an actor, right? However, there are influencers that and we're talking not necessarily about hyper local, right? Hyper local, they're only going to have a couple thousand followers. So we're not talking about these millions of followers, Mr. Beast type influencers, right?
Right.
We're talking about people who this is their livelihood, but simultaneously come across as real.
Well, typically they're going to be also enthusiasts or you would hope that they're enthusiasts in whatever topic. If they're theme park enthusiasts, that these are people who like going to theme parks already, and so therefore have some insights perhaps to share.
And to that end, there are platforms these people make themselves available on, so they can be hired through that means. So from an actionable perspective, like I said, this is a trend. I'm not sure that I would recommend a small business wade into this without having done their due diligence first. The AI side of things is a little bit scary in that authenticity component. It can get out of hand really quickly. So do I recommend AI influencers? It really depends on the product and service that you're selling, and the core component of AI that I believe is going to be really significant in the coming year, which is AI personalization.
How does that work?
So AI personalization is going to have all the key data points about each audience member. So who are who are you, right? So how old are you? What are your demographics, right? Or what's your gender? And then what do you do for a living? What's your income? Psychographics. What are you interested in? And then buyer intent, right? What are you actively searching for, service wise, product wise, that I can sell you? And then that information gets fed into platforms, whether it's a dynamic CRM or it is an email SMS AI enabled platform.
They seem to be getting better and better at targeting you personally. I'm seeing it mostly in like email campaigns where my name is in there. Sometimes some, where I work or what I
Yeah,
do, what my job title, that
absolutely.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
And the crazy thing is you can respond to these emails and it uses natural language to reply. So you don't even realize that you're interfacing with AI. It feels natural, feels like you're working with an
Does it?
actual person. When it's done well and done correctly,
Right.
absolutely. Um, and so all of those things kind of then transition us into the paid realm, right? So obviously, influencers cost money, AI enabled stuff costs money, but when we're talking about actual paid media, we end up looking at things like streaming ads. Streaming ads are going to grow significantly over the next year.
When you
Um,
talk about streaming ads, you're talking about ads that show on Hulu and Netflix. Is that
so yes, so Hulu is a great example. We're talking about cord cutters, right? So you have CTV, connected TV.
are
That's
there
what
people who aren't cord cutters anymore?
I think there are lots of people who are definitely still cable subscribers.
Okay.
According to Nielsen, we're even seeing, young viewers uh, that are still cable viewers.
Okay.
But when it comes to streaming, yeah, we're talking about not just Hulu. That's one particular app within a platform. It can also be Apple TV, the full box itself, right? So that's where you have your OTT type of advertising.
Roku, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So they're advertising directly to the box, not necessarily to the channel.
Even then, we're still advertising directly to the box because we know the individual that's on the receiving end. We know that they came and visited our website. And so because we know that they visited our website, we have all of their data. We can connect that data to the other side, which could be remarketing or retargeting depending on how you look at it. But basically, we know that you came to Lexus.com, you were searching for a Lexus NX, and now I can go ahead and while you're in the middle of watching whatever late night show that you're streaming in the middle of the afternoon, I can feed you a Lexus commercial about that car.
So that by by design, two people that live right next to each other that are watching the same program could get delivered different marketing messages. Okay.
100% because these
But that
aren't.
doesn't happen in broadcast,
Yeah,
right?
because
Yeah.
well, this
Yeah.
isn't a simulcast, right?
Right.
We're talking about something that is happening. I hit pause, right? We're in the middle of a show. I hit pause to go to the bathroom or to go get a snack. You continue watching the show. We're going to be paused at different times, and there are different interstitials that are going to come up, right? So you might see a 30-second spot, because you let the commercial play, or you might see a pause screen that is tailored just to you.
In addition to that, I'm seeing, the podcasts
A
are
podcast like this one?
yes. Well, ours is not sponsored, but many of them are.
I mean,
Oh, well, sorry. Ours is sponsored by Remixed,
the branding
the
agency.
brand.
So
Um,
yeah, podcast and audio, digital audio advertising. So it's not just limited to podcasts,
Right.
right? You can also advertise on Spotify, but
Oh, that's
like
right. Because I spend so much. I spend a lot of money avoiding.
even iHeartMedia,
Yeah,
right?
but I pay the extra like to not see ads as much as possible,
Sure.
and so tend to forget that the vast majority of people who are not paying the extra they're hearing ads on Spotify, and
Yes.
I don't hear them. So
So yeah, so you can pay for ads to be on Spotify, on Pandora,
sure.
anywhere iHeartMedia streams their content.
And
Um,
that's different than the sponsoring the podcast and getting a live read inside the podcast.
right.
Right.
But what we are definitely seeing in the podcast realm is, again, back to this whole hyper local component where people are finding hyper local podcasts that speak directly to their audience. So it might be you have a tire shine spray, for example, and there's a local car talk podcast. Are you going to reach millions of people like you would on a mainstream podcast? No.
Right.
But are you going to reach the 1,000 people that tune into that one particular podcast that particular week
Right.
in order to promote the sale at the local auto parts store? Absolutely.
And you're going to get in some of them you're going to find that the podcast host is going to talk about using the product, right? So that's kind of what some of those are going for.
And at that point, you're kind of blending the lines between a podcast and an influencer.
You're right. You're right.
And the beauty is you can repurpose that content based on your contract, of course, and be able to utilize it elsewhere. And speaking of elsewhere, we have out of home. So out of home is making a tremendous resurgence, and it's not just printed billboards, right? It's not just printed poster showings or bus shelters. We're seeing vehicle wraps as a big piece, and the bigger trend that I'm looking at coming our way are these digital billboards. There are these digital billboard platforms that you can buy a local digital billboard at very specific locations and pay for however frequent and the times of day that you want at the locations that you want for the same value, same cost, I should say, as a display ad using the Google Display Network or something like AdRoll.
So you could specifically target afternoon drive people or people near a hospital or something like that.
Yeah, whatever matches where your audience might be at that particular time. And speaking of being where your audience might be, the next big set of trends that I'm looking at are community oriented marketing. And so it's not just community, it's content, right? So it's interlocking those two pieces.
Does it mean like sponsorships or events?
It is. It's
Okay.
all of it, right?
Okay.
So it's having your own event as a marketing vehicle or sponsoring an event as a marketing vehicle. And of course, there are major benefits to sponsoring an event because all of a sudden you're doing brand partnerships and collabs, right? But with these events and experiences, it ranges from pop-ups where people can have an interaction with you as if you are a full-fledged store, but of course you're only doing it for a month, or a vacant storefront. There's some really amazing things that we're seeing in that regard, like using augmented reality, where someone holds up a smartphone, scans the QR code, and the next thing you know, there's an animated character, or they're interacting with a virtual product in the space.
That's so you're not when you say augmented reality, I immediately think of like glasses, like Google glasses and all that stuff. Like you're
That's
talking.
more virtual reality. I
Okay,
mean,
right,
yeah,
right,
there
right.
there are like the new Meta glasses that have
Sure.
AR, but no, we're
We're not.
talking.
Yeah, there's not really a marketing opportunity there yet.
So you know how QR codes about 20, 25 years ago were pretty cool but pretty
No,
useless?
right, because you had to install an extra app or whatever to make it work.
We're kind of there with AR. We're
Okay.
we're it, I actually prefer the term XR because it's not really just limited to the idea of virtual reality, but it's also not limited to AR. So it's experience, right? And so it's experiential reality, where you can have simulated or digital media overlaying what's beyond the camera lens.
So in the community building aspects,
Hmm.
you're talking what, like newsletters, or are these like
Yeah,
how do you I have a little bit of background in developer community building,
just a
and
little. Yeah,
just a
sure.
little, but but that was a very specific, curating developer communities is a pretty small niche,
Right.
but versus building a community around like a hospital, or some sort of a local brand, a
Yeah.
art center or something like that.
So on the email, digital newsletter side, we are seeing a growing trend of HTML formatted emails, but not like the cold emails where we were talking about with the AI, where it can send natural language emails. Those are usually plain text emails. That's for your top of funnel audience. These are
Mm.
people that they haven't engaged with the brand yet, and we're trying to introduce them to the brand.
Let me do a
But
quick plug. We did a another podcast called Fun with Funnels. So
fun with funnels,
if you want to
yes.
understand how funnels work, go check that one out.
So when it comes to email newsletters, what we're talking is more mid-funnel, people who have already gotten some degree of familiarity with the brand, and especially bottom of funnel, right? People who have already converted. They've not only engaged with the brand, but they've either purchased the product or service. And so they're an opportunity to be a repeat customer.
The You mentioned brand partnerships. What are some examples of how you can partner your brand with another brand to advantage?
Well, I mean, on the most grassroots level, you've got bands that go perform at a brewery, for
Mhm.
example. And so all of a sudden, the brewery is promoting the band, and the band is promoting the brewery. And so there's this mutual collaboration here where, the brewery is bringing in a new audience for the band, and the band is bringing in a new consumer for the brewery. That would be one grassroots level. It can grow out from there. It could be where it's a fashion house that coordinates with a small cafe, right? And so all of a sudden there's a local niche. Maybe it's an urban t-shirt graphic tees company, and that they coordinate with I don't know, a coffee shop, and so they start making really cool swag for the coffee shop, and that creates that bit of collab.
And I guess it also helps build community, right?
It
So
100
yeah, yeah, yeah.
100%, yeah.
And I guess out of that, you kind of start to see how all of these things start to work together
Right.
as as cohesive sort of brand awareness campaigns.
Yeah, and that all comes down to what the consumer expectations are, right? And so the consumer expectations are probably easy to break down into a handful of silos. So the first one is, and we keep talking about this, authenticity and trust, right? Don't deviate from your brand's voice. Don't deviate from who you are as a company and as a
And it's
person.
easy to do that with through some of these things we're talking about. The wrong influencer can deviate, can actually hurt you,
It
or
can.
using an AI tool in the wrong way can also cause harm to your brand.
Yeah, and that kind of takes us to inclusion and representation, right? So if your influencer is a 37-year-old woman and your target audience are college-aged kids,
Right.
that's going to be dissonant, right? So what people like to see are individuals that reflect themselves, right? So if I was to look at something that had a small child marketing to me, I'm not that target audience, right? A small child doesn't really hold much clout with me when it comes to purchasing a jacket.
That's true. Do you have any final thoughts on where any other trends that you're seeing, or to sum up what we've got, what 2026 is got in store for us?
So I believe that 2026, we're going to see a significant shift toward authenticity, storytelling, and technology integration. So I'm looking forward to a lot of experiential augmented reality type stuff. I'm looking forward to a lot of AI driven optimization. I think that that's going to be a really big part, along with first party data. But I also believe that there's a lot of media fragmentation for us to be mindful of. And so I think trend wise, we're not going to see people syndicating the same content across all social media channels. I believe that we're going to start seeing very specific targeted messaging that matches the channel, as opposed to messaging that just matches the brand.
It's interesting that you say that, because even amongst the platforms, they have different user bases, right? So, for example, Meta's Facebook tends to shift to an older demographic, because these are the primarily Gen X people who adopted Facebook as sort of their first platform, their first social media platform. So they're on it. But you're also seeing the millennials and the Gen Zs, and they're not on Facebook. And so I can see why that would be valuable, because you might want a different message going to a Facebook post
Yeah.
versus a TikTok.
Well, and not only that, the technologies are different, right? If you put a link on Facebook, algorithmically, it's going to mess with you. So you need to put that link in your comments. But Instagram, on the other hand, you can't even put a link.
Right.
The only time you can put a link is if it's a sponsored post. So if you put a link in an Instagram post, it might send the wrong message.
I don't think it's going to send the wrong message, but it could.
It just tells people that you're putting out content that's syndicated and not necessarily targeted.
It's not targeted to them, and that comes back to the authenticity,
exactly.
and the non-AI nature, the non-automated things, because I think people are getting more savvy about this stuff, and they're and so
even with AI generated content.
Sure, yeah. It's like obviously it still fools some people, but
and some people enjoy it. So it's not even about in authenticity. It's entertaining.
Right. Yes. So anyway, I think that's a good place to wrap it up, and until we have our next podcast with Brand of Brothers.
Sounds great. Thank you for tuning in to Brand of Brothers. Big thank you to our presenting sponsor, Remix, the branding agency, along with production assistance from Johnny Diggz, Simon Jacobson, and me, Doug Berger. We can't forget music by PRO. Speaking of not forgetting, remember to do that like and subscribe thing, and find us at brandshowlive.com and follow us on the socials at Brand Show Live.